Hi guys, I'm going to share with you today one of my favorite books, and it goes along with our study on slavery. It's called Almost to Freedom. Make sure you can see the cover. So this is a story about this little girl, and her family is running away from slavery. So they've escaped. And she has a little doll here. The doll's a big part of the story. So let's get started. Now, in the story, I'm going to tell you that some of this is written in like the slavery kind of language and the dialect, which is kind of like the accent that they use. So I'm going to try my best to read it like the author wrote it. Some of the words are kind of hard, but I'll try to read it the way you should read it. Okay. I started out no more in a bunch of rags on a Virginia plantation. Lindy's mama was my maker. Miss Rachel done a fine job putting me together, taking extra time to sew my face on real careful with thread, embroidery they called it. I don't have no hair. Miss Rachel just made me a bandana from some old cloth and tied it around my head like she wore. I used to think about having me some hair, but now it don't bother me none. So here's the picture. So who is the narrator of the story? Yes, it's the doll. So we're going to read the story from the doll's point of view. When she's done sewing, Miss Rachel give me to her little girl. Lindy hugs me hard and says, "Your name be Sally. We gonna be best friends." From that day on, when Lindy be somewheres, I be there with her. I like how Lindy holds me at night and don't even mind when she rolls over on me in her sleep. Being Lindy's doll baby is a right important job. All right, so Ms. Rachel is the mother, and the little girl is Lindy. And there she is hugging her little doll. And Lindy rolls over on her at nighttime, and she doesn't even mind. When Lindy and Miss Rachel pick cotton, I'll be there too. Lindy ties me around her waist with a rope. The knot's kind of loose after a while, and I fall to the ground. "Sally, you're getting yourself all dirty," Lindy says. "Now you stay put." So the doll's name is Sally. Miss Rachel wipes sweat from her brow and shows Lindy how to tie me on tight. The overseer hollers, "Get up there," like he's talking to a couple of horses. He's riding over, carrying his whip. Miss Rachel and Lindy start quick picking again. The work be hard, but the day's long. Seems a mite easier with everybody singing. "Swing low, sweet chariot, coming for to carry me home." So remember, one of the ways that slaves passed their time and made their work more enjoyable was to sing some ballads together. They would sing these songs together to keep their spirits up and pass time. So the overseer is the person who is in charge of the slaves' work and watches over them to make sure that everybody's putting in work and everybody is, staying on task and nobody's trying to get away. So even children, like Lindy, has to work in the fields all day. Come sundown, we sit round and listen to stories about little critters fooling big ones and about slaves outsmarting the masses. So masses would be like the master. These are the best times because there's lots of laughing and singing. But when folks start talking about something called freedom, their faces turn serious in the firelight. Some say you can buy freedom, but it's so dear we never heard anybody ever could. Seems the only way to get to it is to run away to a place called North. All right, there they are. So at nighttime, they did sit around the fire just for a little bit and kind of wind down after they ate their supper. And they would tell stories and dream about escaping, to the north so they could be free. The way they talk, freedom must be a good thing. But after what happened to Lindy's papa, I ain't sure. Strangers chained Mr. Henry in a wagon and took him away. Massa sold him down the river is what folks say, 'cause he's trying to get to freedom. Miss Rachel cried. She cried and cried, and Lindy too, and she hugged me so hard I thought my insides will bust out my seams. And after that, Miss Rachel sits up at night looking at the stars in the sky. She holds Lindy, and Lindy holds me, and she rocks us singing, steal away home. I ain't got long to stay here. So her dad, this is her dad, and he's being taken away by some of the plantation workers there, the overseers, and he must have, I guess, tried to escape, and now for punishment, a lot of times if they were with their family, they would separate them and sell them to another plantation to work, and the punishment was, he's probably never going to get to see his wife and child again. And there is Lindy and Sally. Sally's in the front there. She's the doll. And there's Lindy, and then there's Miss Rachel, the mama, and she's hugging her daughter, and her daughter's holding Sally. And so she's dreaming about stealing away to freedom. Remember, the North Star was a big part, because remember, at night is when they would try to escape, and they would follow the North Star. One day, Lindy gets whipped by the overseer. She didn't do nothing but ask Massa's son how to spell her name. Well, the boy tells on Lindy, and Massa comes out and says, "We'll make sure you people forget all about reading and writing." He makes everybody stop working to watch. I was tied to Lindy, but when the whipping starts, I slipped out and fall. My face is on the ground, but I hear the overseer's black snake whip, and I hear Lindy screaming. I hear Miss Rachel crying, and when it's over, I see the cuts on Lindy's back. Remember, they would whip them so severely with a whip that it would actually break the skin. And all she did was ask about learning how to read and write. While she was doctoring Lindy, Miss Rachel whispers a prayer. "Lord, don't let Massa be selling my baby like he done her papa." Later, Lindy sets me on a stump and her cheeks wet with tears. "Someday, Sally, we won't be doing what Massa say. We be going to freedom." I'm thinking, Lord have mercy. So she's like, you just got whipped. You can't be thinking about freedom right now because we could get in big trouble. So there's the overseer's whip. And then there she's crying, and she's already been whipped. And there's little Sally down there, had fallen away from her belt. And there she is on the stump, talking to Sally. One night, Lindy's sleeping beside me like always, and then there's this whispering, and Lindy's getting her clothes on. The sun ain't awake yet, but field workers is always up before dawn, so I don't think much of it. Miss Rachel's all dressed and telling Lindy, "Hurry up now, but hush." And Lindy grabs me up and ties me to her. The way Lindy's heart's beating, I know something important's happening. All right, there they are. She's waking her daughter up. So, what do you think she's doing? Is she planning to run away? Lindy takes Miss Rachel's hand, and we sneak out behind our shack and run into the night. I know I ain't running, but it feels like I am. It feels like I'm flying. Branches slap us along the way like they're scolding us, warning us to go back. But Miss Rachel don't pay no mind. She just keeps running. "My feet, Mama, there's burrs," Lindy says. "I know, baby," Miss Rachel whispers, "but we gotta keep going." We run for a while, then hide under the brush. Then we run some more. Lindy's breathing hard, but says, "Don't be worrying, Sally. Mama say we'll be with Papa soon." Soon don't come real soon. So there they are, still in the dark. So it sounds like they're going to meet their dad, her dad. But sure enough, Mr. Henry's waiting by the river, and he hugs Miss Rachel. Then he lifts Lindy into the air and me with her. "Papa," Lindy says, laughing, but Mr. Henry covers her mouth and holds her close. "Quiet now. We got to get to the boatman and cross over." We hurry along the bank to where the man is waiting with a skiff. A skiff is kind of like a little boat. Kind of bigger than like a canoe, but just a real small boat. Without one word, we climb in. The night is dark as inside a possum. It's dead quiet except for the sound of the boatman pushing his oars. My face soaks up little splashes of water as we glide along. All right, so there she is with her dad, and then there they are in the boat. Okay, so where we live is really important, and I don't know if you all think about this very often, but the Ohio River is just right here. Remember, the Ohio River was like the cutoff for the North and the South. So this boatman was probably on the Ohio River, and he would wait till somebody was needing his services, and he would, kind of go across the river and take them from the south side, which would be Kentucky, into the north side, into Ohio. And once you got over into Ohio, you were considered to be in the north. Remember, slave catchers could go and get you, so you had to be really, really secretive until you got way up north and you had some kind of identification where they could say that you weren't going back. But for a long time, they could come and get you and take you back, so it was a very secretive mission. On the other side, Miss Rachel squeezes the boatman's hand. Lindy's papa leads us through the night woods. We run and hide until we come to a house with a lantern glowing soft in the window. We crouch behind the barn. Lindy's papa calls out, "Hoo, hoo," like a hooty owl. The lantern goes out. A white man wearing eyeglasses steps out of the dark. He motions us to follow him to the back of the house. So they had these like secret calls and secret, I guess little signals that they would do. And one was, if you were going to help people who needed your help, you would put the lantern in the window. Sometimes they used like the quilts that were outside. And then when they would make that little signal, this one was the hooty owl, and then the lantern turns out, and that means that you're going to be helped. I don't know how they got all the word to people who, helped and what the signals were. It's, I'm sure it took a long time. Inside the kitchen, a woman with silver hair opens a door to a storeroom. The man lifts a rug, takes some boards from the floor, and uncovers a ladder leading into pitch darkness. "It's small and a mite chilly," the man says, "but it's the safest place we've got." And he hands Miss Rachel a lantern. "I've put blankets and water down there, and I'll get you some food," the woman says. "Much obliged, ma'am," Mr. Henry says, and he climbs down the ladder. The woman hands Lindy a pillow. Miss Rachel's friend who worked in the big house told us about pillows, but I'd never seen one. So they didn't even have a pillow to sleep on, and now she's getting her pillow. And there they are climbing down into, it's kind of like a little cellar, like a basement. It's just one little room. The secret room is tiny, but not much smaller than the shack Massa had us in. Miss Rachel spreads 2 blankets on the dirt floor, and everybody except me takes some water. Well, of course she doesn't take water because she's a doll, right? Lindy lays me on the pillow. It's the softest thing, like a cloud from heaven. The silver-haired woman hands down a stew pot, bowls, some bread, and cheese. Then she closes up the floor, and Miss Rachel serves us up supper. Nobody talks, too tired, too scared. They sop up the last of the stew with the bread. So there they are eating their dinner, and Sally's over there on the pillow. "Sleep now," Papa says to Lindy and me. And Lindy whispers she needs to make water. So that means she has to go to the bathroom, right? Mr. Henry points to a bucket in the corner. "The privy be too dangerous." So to go outside, remember at this time they don't have indoor plumbing. So this is way back in the 1800s. So you had the outhouse. So, but it's too dangerous to go outside of the room because the slave catcher might be outside. So they just put like a bucket in the room, and you'd have to go to the bathroom there. So after Lindy holds me close, like always, she lays her head on that pillow and smiles. "Night, Sally," she whispers. "We almost to freedom. If I could have, I'd have smiled too." So here she is. She's getting all tucked in by her dad, and then Sally's all happy because she's with Lindy. Seems like we just get to sleep, and then Miss Rachel is shaking Lindy. "Come on, baby, quick." "Why?" Lindy asks. "Slave catchers," Mr. Henry whispers, blowing out the lantern. Lindy ties me around her waist, and I guess sleep still has her because the knot ain't tight. And Miss Rachel tucks some bread and cheese into her apron, and she and Lindy follows Mr. Henry up the ladder. They're scrambling fast, and I feel myself slipping. Then I'm falling till I hit the dirt floor. Lindy calls my name. The silver-haired lady closes up the floor. "Lindy, wait." but she can't hear me because I ain't got no voice, because she's a doll, right? The boards shut out the light, so they have to scramble out so fast that Sally gets, she falls from the little rope that she had tied around her belt, and she falls back down into the cellar. When the floorboards open again, sunlight shines in, and the silver-haired woman comes down the ladder. "There you are," she says, picking me up. "Your little mama didn't want to leave you." She straightens my dress. "There just wasn't time." And she sets me on a blanket and tucks it around me. "Sleep tight," she says, and carries the lantern and privy bucket up the ladder. Then she closes the floor. If I could have made tears, them blankets would have been wet clean through. I want Lindy, but I know she ain't coming back. She can't. The loneliness swallows me up. So she's all lonely and sad because she got left behind. And I'm sure that actually happens sometimes because they had to, leave so quickly, sometimes when it was dangerous. I give a lot of time to thinking about Lindy and her folks and where they was and if they ever got to freedom like they were wanting. I got a lot of time to pray, and they did, and I give a lot of time to grieving. Grieving for myself. I wish the silver-haired woman would come, but she don't. Nobody comes. And after a spell, I'm thinking maybe slave catchers is watching this house. Maybe the hiding place ain't safe. Maybe I'll lay right here for the rest of my days. By and by, a mouse scurries over my face and into a corner. I's glad to have the company. I pass the time listening to Miss Mouse make herself a nest and raise her young'uns. I's sorry when they finally go, because I get to feeling lonely again. And I got to thinking that I best stop hoping. So there she is, laying on the pillow still, and then there's the little mouse and their little family scurrying away. Then, one day, praise the Lord, the board's being moved. Somebody's coming down the ladder. If I'd a flesh and blood heart, it would have been pounding like Lindy's that night they run off. I see light from a lantern and a woman's wrapping up a little girl in a blanket. The child's shivering, more scared, I think, than cold. Her eyes look tired and tearful. The woman picks me up and says, "Willa, darling, this must be the dolly that Missus was mentioning." She blows the dust off my face and holds me close to the lantern. "Mighty fine stitching." "Can I keep her?" the girl asks, and her mama nods, and Willa hugs me so hard I think my insides will bust out my seams. So there they are coming down the ladder into the cellar, and then there she is meeting Lindy. So her name is Willa. Two men come down the ladder. They talk about going north to freedom, and their faces serious in the lamplight. When they settle in for sleeping, Willa holds me in her arms and whispers, "Your name, Belinda. We're going to be best friends." So now this little girl's named her Belinda instead of Lindy, which is kind of similar, don't you think? So Belinda, I like that. It sounds like Lindy. My face don't change, but I'm smiling inside, remembering the crackling of the straw mattress when Lindy'd roll over on me in her sleep. I sure do miss her. But I was mighty glad to be Willa's doll baby. It's a right important job. And there she is, being held by her new mama. And that's the end. But there's a little thing at the ending I always like to share with my classes because it's just such a sweet idea. So the author was inspired to write this story because she visited this museum. It's in New Mexico. It's called the International Folk Art Museum in Santa Fe. They have a big display of rag dolls that were made from the 1800s to like early 1900. And so they went in there and they, looked at all the different rag dolls that were being made and stuff. And a few were said to have been found in the hideouts of the Underground Railroad. So these dolls were really there. So that would be a primary source, right? And so as she's admiring this exhibit of all these rag dolls, her husband leans in and whispers to her, "Wow, if only these dolls could talk." And she thought, wow, that would be a great story because if these dolls could tell us some of the stories that, you know, were happening to them when they were traveling with their little girls, then it would be really, really neat to know what they were thinking or what they heard. So, and here was one of the real ones that inspired her to write the story. And you can tell that this little doll here has like a yellow dress on, and it's just like the one that she designed for the book. So the author is Vonda Mako Nelson, and the illustrations were by Colin Boatman, or Bootman. It's Bootman. Almost to Freedom, and if you can see here, the little sticker, it won the Coretta Scott King, award, the honor book. So she won an award for this book. Very, very good. I love it. It's one of my favorites. I hope you all liked it. I made some questions up, so I want you to answer the questions on the story. If you don't remember something, go back and watch the video.